So we're now Thursday 9th of July. There's the daily upgrade on the kidnapper Fred, so you still can't see him, he's locked behind this thing. And there's Birmingham's court service. So again, Birmingham's court service can just be transplanted here normally, because again, if you're doing knowledge work, the entire job can be done in a bag effectively. The databases we oversee are sort of archaic affairs that it would probably take the average person several months to learn, so you've got to navigate around various sort of archaic UI elements, this kind of thing, to find certain documents and this kind of stuff. So someone new coming into it, unless they were well versed in the law and that kind of housing law, they're probably not going to have the skills to do the job at any kind of realistic level very quickly. And you've got to defer heavily to the skills of the people in the department, because the knowledge of that kind of city is extremely valuable. Because the people running the place, though, were criminals, they have no way to value knowledge. So you can tell they're crooks because they have no clue how to work out how much their employees are worth. So in this case, they realise how badly they've made mistakes, they're trying to actually kill them off. So in this case, occupational health and safety, you should have security reviews. I'm doing the security reviews because I've got access to their databases, the higher level stuff where you look at security codes and think in real terms about keeping yourself, your staff, your tenants safe, because you're looking at those kind of issues within the policy department of the local authority. You've already realised that you can't run, you're sort of waiting for someone in authority to actually show up and be an adult, because they don't for 6 years. Even Max Caller buggers off without talking to the court service. So you're left in this absurd position where the court service now logically cannot run. If the commissioners won't talk to court staff, then logically our tenants are at risk. So when I'm calling someone and an adult man is crying down the phone because he's at serious risk of being violently assaulted by his neighbours who he doesn't know, doesn't speak the same language of, we've got no effective support locally other than community safety, who will do, they'll help us get rid of people based on public nuisance laws, that kind of stuff. So we'll work together using existing law to get troubled people out, because of the complete chaos and lack of security, you can't actually do that. So if I'm being denied access to police, then quite obviously I can't do the job personally, and neither can the people we oversee. It's not safe for the tenants, etc., etc. The problem has been caused by people like Naylor, so that was happening in 2020. It filtered down to the local level, so that was the thuggish moron Diane Jones thought it was a good idea to issue threats. But because of her ignorant threats, we had to sort of back off a bit based on Helen's advice. We've sat there for 6 years in the department sort of recording what these people are doing, giving them enough rope to hang themselves, and now the rope has dropped and they're sort of dangling corpses in terms of their careers, and they're behaving badly as they wait for investigators to come in and deal with them. Again, once again, we've given you the time and date on the recording, so I can certify once again that no West Midlands police officers have contacted me. The position is therefore totally unchanged. It's not really easy to see how Birmingham can now do compliance given various factors. So you may want to take this into account when considering the legal action against the local authority. So McGrath & Co. Over the course of its history has sued the local authority on many occasions, hence not receiving pecuniary interest from them. But the pecuniary interest went to my late father, and of course they should because of arrangement. I'm sure that whatever his nonsense can be unpicked. But the problem is we can't really physically go back to Birmingham given the current state of it, which makes conversation with his partners quite difficult. And it appears to be the case that Deborah Gentieri is concluding that his partners have no value. She doesn't need to speak with them or me or anyone really, because she's conducted the sort of kabuki performance, same as the managing director in Birmingham. But given the whole point of she being caught doing that, it is getting very odd to try the playing with laptops game at that kind of level of seniority. Anyway, we don't know. We'll work it out when authority actually shows up. For recording then, so if you call 101, point them toward Deborah Gentieri. In terms of finding people in this organisation, if you do first name dot last name at birmingham.gov.uk, you can find any bureaucrat you want. Typically Most email boxes are open to the public. Quite rightly, as a public authority, you've got a right to know who people are. You've got a right to know who I am if I'm attacking you on behalf of the state. It's quite important that you know who I am, so you can challenge me if you think my decisions are bad. But because of the way the department was run, the levels of corruption, there was no compliance in the department. So Tim Savile's on down, which corrupt as the director. And when you've got director level corruption from Peter Bishop, of course, went through the struggle sessions, then elected, you've got all these problems being battered off down the line to other people because more senior people have gone, well, sod this, we can't do this anymore, we just left the city and left everyone else clear up their messes. So now that, we don't know, Bolton appears to be a sort of Tory wet looking at it, but we've got actual compliance people and more passionate people, shall we say, looking at this. Again, just think through the legal implications yourself. You don't need to be a particularly intelligent person to work this through. If some bureaucrat has never spoken to someone who's just not responding to court officers who are explicitly saying, the police are required, this person cannot be in a compliance department in any organisation in the country, can they? You wouldn't trust this woman with a shop till. So when I was going down to the Charlie Peters panel in London, he was saying, well, put your hand up if you want to die. I mean, most people didn't because we're not stupid, but you think these kind of matters through, and you think about, well, there are other people being subject to this kind of thing in Birmingham because of the total breakdown in law and order. We've been trying internally via the bureaucratic process for 6 years. We apologise for nothing. At every step of the occasion, we've been forthright and bold, saying no, we're not going along with this. It's other people in the bureaucracy who are going along with this for money. So again, it's audit being threatened, this kind of stuff. So we've got the baby step stuff. They've got the records now, but the records are linked to the people. Just what have the people been doing during that saga? So there's got to be an investigation. If the commissioners need powers, then quite clearly they need them. If Corler wasn't speaking to court staff because he didn't have some kind of legal power to do so, then that's again an absurd position. You can't have that kind of stuff. We've been audited for legal compliance back in 2009, I think, when I started. There's no reason we can't do that again, have external audits and that kind of stuff. But again, they are just so stupid. They have tried this unpersoning thing. So you say back in November that here in the historical terms of this kind of stuff is the sort of unpersoning, Foucauldian sense tactics. You put that in writing to employer keeps on doing it after being quoted case law and ignoring ACAS. I mean, the levels of corruption in the city have just reached that kind of level that we're often sort of Narnia Fantasyland stuff. Because they're surrounded by walls and look official, so you've got a bureaucrat in a building like this, they get to strut around and say, well, I'm in charge. But of course, if you're in the legal compliance department, no, you're not in charge, you don't belong here, you need to be removed. So because we couldn't do that for several years, it's battered these problems down, and they're now finding that the people in compliance now saying, no, I'm sorry, no, and there are severe legal implications. So one of us in this situation is being held hostage. It's either me or the City of Birmingham effectively, and given the sort of background, I'm pretty happy to say at every stage of the process we've done the right thing. At any stage, Errol Robinson could have contacted me directly and could have been proactive. Anyone in the firm could, but it's not their responsibility because they're a private law firm. They're not responsible for me. What we're saying is that for obvious pragmatic senses, if your quote-unquote managers are making pragmatic statements that obviously don't reflect reality, then they're obviously behaving dishonestly. So if you're saying, you need to go physically walk down to a building, talk to people because I can't at the moment, and they're refusing, then again you can think the possible criminal penalties through from the point that refusal came. But I can't do that because I can't interview these people under caution from Scotland. So they can come here to a police station, there's one down the road, and they can come and have a chat in an interview suite. But until we've got some adults doing adult things, we're not going to engaged in these silly little games with these women playing with laptops. When you've got people being violently assaulted on the streets of the city, and again, the court officers are saying, well, this is the reason for that, you can't actually just ignore that, sorry. So for the written statement then, time is 3:26. We'll give them again till midday tomorrow. Same every day. We'll give them a chance to actually be honest. They've got to go and get speak to the people in Sutton just logically at this point because of the behaviour of the previous head of West Midlands Police. So unless there's some kind of liaison, just think this through logically. Who could possibly carry on, or who else could possibly do the job? Right? So who could in that department go through the correct legal inferences, follow existing law? So there's not a political argument, it's a legal argument based on any sensible interpretation of the EQA and the history of the ideas being pumped in to use that as a weapon effectively. That's how it was used. It's not exactly a difficult thing to prove at this point, is it? So weapons are legitimate because the state uses them. This is what we do, so we attack people on behalf of the local authority, and we're saying that we're starting to be people trying to force us to do that illegally, and we're saying no, and trying to force to, and we're saying no. It's circular arguments. So we're up there with this now, but for the further record, so Deborah Argentieri has not contacted me via any kind of reasonable process. She conducted a strange kabuki via her laptop and has now vanished into the ether. So if you can physically find her, drone is good, get her on camera, microphone, whatever, and just ask her basically Socratic questions about what she's doing. Obviously you can point her out to local police on site and play back these sort of recordings so the police officer can listen to this kind of stuff and say, oh right, okay, I need to actually be a liaison and go and discuss matters. Once you've got things back and forth, we can get things through to the local law firms, that'll open them up, and then we can go through to Birmingham NHS, audit, compliance, all the rest of it. So it's basically like an exploded bomb in the council house. It's about to go off. They're desperately trying to prevent it going off, but it's already gone, so she's already got the documents. They can be pulled out of the server, and I've got them myself, so we just leave them to behave ethically. They're refusing. So, they've got themselves into checkmate. I can only go forward, they can't defend. So when we're saying this is a clever strategy to deal with these people, it is. So if you can, it's not confusing them, it's telling them the law, right? So the law has changed, here's a new legal inference, you have to think about it independently on your own. There's no guidance, nobody's going to tell you how to think about this kind of stuff. You've got to be intelligent and talk to people. So unless you pass the test, you can't work in the department. Well, you certainly can't be a senior person in the department because you're going to be dangerous. You're not going to make the correct inferences, make silly decisions, etc., etc. So they've got this completely arse backwards. And it's all because they wouldn't comply. If they'd just done as they were told, they would have learned more quickly, and therefore they would have been compliant. Yeah, but anyway, for the record, Fred is still under here, so when you come here to think things through, think of the handicap. You can't sit on Frederick the Great and think this stuff through. Absolute travesty. Look at him.